This week's Art Heart Academy prompt is stacked. You can't tell it, but I'm doing air quotes right now. So naturally, I decided to stack paint, text, paper, pressure, and probably a few questionable decisions. Let's see if this turns into art or just a very colorful cry for help. I want to take you through this step by step. My first step was I used my HP inkjet printer to print off a picture that I thought would be applicable to what I see as stacked. And I also wanted to do this as a mixture of inkjet transfer and using a magazine, or which is akin to laserjet printing. So uh, to do that, I have leaving the paper on to mask the inkjet transfer while I put a thin coat of the black acrylic paint down to do the magazine transfer, which actually I'm not using a magazine. I'm using I'm using a clinical brochure from my other job. And this is in no way my legal disclaimer here. This is in no way an endorsement or a statement concerning this particular treatment. Okay, so to do this, that thin coat or that thin layer of black acrylic paint is on, and then I just lightly touch down the portion of the text that I want to transfer over. If you notice here, it's a little hard to see, but that at the top did not transfer well. And so I thought this is just all messed up, but actually it's not, because you can go ahead and just redo it. That's one of the nice things about catching it at this point before the paint has dried. And so I'm just using a baby wipe there to remove the extra black paint. And I'm also going to remove this black paint that's in the middle, because that's where I'm going to put the stacked portion of this piece ultimately. Art Heart Academy is an opportunity that you can have through Josie Lewis's website. And so if you get a chance, you should check it out, because it's really interesting to see um, how other artists communicate and take these prompts and to see what they do with it. So to redo the portion that did not work, I'm just gonna put down another thin coat of the black acrylic paint and try to make it as even across as possible, as evenly distributed as possible. I don't want to cover up the portions that I already liked of the text. And I'm using this text just to provide texture to the piece. It actually doesn't, um, the words themselves are not actually conveying anything at this point that's specifically about either the theme for the week's prompt or the piece overall that I'm going to make. Now I take my wet wipe, my baby wipe, and just clean it up a little bit for the portion that would be akin to the laser print transfer. I'm going to unmask the portion that is from the inkjet printer. Now, I did use double-sided glossy brochure paper. I know that some others have mentioned that they've been able to use copy paper to get this done, to do an inkjet transfer, but I've never had that luck. And so I use what works for me, and it works almost every time. And that's using the double-sided glossy brochure paper. Now, I want to protect the image of the person doing the push-up here, and to do that, I'm going to mask it with just white acrylic paint. So I'm going to cover up the portion that I don't want any of the other colors to 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 obscure, that image, because that person is literally going to be the base of what's going to be stacked. I also think that this is a good example of how you can plan one thing and and you started out and it just didn't work. So you just can pivot and can do something else. And so when that first, text transfer didn't work, rather than just giving up and going on with it, you know, just keep hammering through and you just trust that process. Now for the stacked element here, I'm actually using kids blocks, and I can even include a link in the description to the actual blocks that I use. Excuse me. And so these blocks were great as stamps. Now you have to realize that since you're stamping it in, that it's going to be the mirror image is backwards. And so that way, whenever you pull the lift up, it's actually the right side up, right orientation. Yeah, right orientation. And so the reason why I say that is this word, in case you didn't put together yet, it's doubt. And the B, the lowercase b, will look like a D when you check it on the other side, when you're looking through and checking it. Not on the other side, this side, the reverse side. Yes. So, I don't know. It's been a long week. We've been on vacation and out of town this week. And why is it that you always come back a little bit more tired than you started off? Okay, now in the video here, you can't really make out the lettering. But you gotta just trust the process that in the final pull, it's going to come through. And then you can also do some highlights and some touch-ups with the fine liner or with a white pen. Now again, I'm gonna go through here and just remove some of the extraneous blue. You don't have to here, um, but I just think that it helps ultimately the letter portions to pop out in the final piece. I'm going for this idea here that we can have so much self-doubt in whatever it is that we're doing. It doesn't have to be art, and it can just really feel like it's crushing down, and that there's so much noise and everything going around. Um, so that's what I'm going through. Now you can see the letters a little better, so you can flip it over. Some of the nice things about the gel print, the gel plate, is you can flip this over and you can get an idea of the way it's looking. I will let you point. I do want to point out right now that I have let that dry, because otherwise, since I've got a piece of paper underneath, if I flipped it over, it would take the paint off. Now I want to protect. I'm going to add additional colors just to give it a little bit more pizzazz, and so I want to kind of protect the integrity of that dark blue, the dark blue stack of blocks. And so to do that, I'm going to add in a white paint using my small brayer here. Um, it just helps give a little bit more of a cushion, a buffer there between the different layers of paint. So ultimately, this is going to have multiple layers here. Now for additional colors and additional pieces of interest here, I'm going to use this is a Persian red, which to me at least it looks very pink and like an ocean green color. Again, I would like to do a buffer between the two, since the pink and the green, if they when they mix, can make kind of a gray. I'm not overly worried about it, but just adding a little bit of that white, the titanium white there, kind of helps blend that transition a little bit better between the two sides. And I'm using my large brayer. This is an 8-inch brayer here. I like to use that. Sorry, my mic died. I like to use this 8-inch brayer whenever I'm doing some type of gradient or like an ombre effect or anything like that. It does a really good job on these larger gel plates in mixing. Now this is not the layer of paint that's going to use to pull. So after it's dried, I'm going to actually add a mixture of the clear matte acrylic medium and a titanium white. Many times I just use matte acrylic medium, but here I wanted to add the white in as well, because I want to give additional white background. Because at the time I wasn't 100% sure if I was wanting to put this in one of my sketch journals or against a different background, and I wanted to make sure that the lettering was able to be easily seen. So I don't want anything to bleed through the clear matte acrylic medium. Which actually, one of these days, maybe I have to do like a tour of some of the sketchbooks or something. Just let me know if you think that'd be something interesting worth looking into. So I need to just add a thin coating of this white acrylic paint in matte medium mixture here, so that we can get a good background, as well as just to have the wet strengthened tea bag paper I'm going to use to stick to it. And I just had really great results with the matte acrylic medium for helping adhere to the paper I'm going to use. So I'm going to smooth this out. It's gently but yet firmly. I use the palm of my hands and whenever I'm adding the paper on there. And then I like to add a heavier book on for probably a good 20 or 30 minutes. You get full transfer. I didn't actually time it, but it's just usually, go and you take a bathroom break, maybe get a cup of coffee. Now my favorite part, and that's the reveal. Sometimes the gel really can get stuck or feels like it's stuck, and that's one of the reasons why the wet, strengthened, tissue paper or tea bag paper can work really well for that removal because it doesn't tear or rip so easily. You get really great transfer here, both the inkjet image as well as the image from the um, the text that I was using. I'm really pleased by this. It looks grungy. That's okay. It's a good look for a monoprint. And then I'm gonna go through and just add a little bit of fine lining to it to help it pop whenever I go to put it into my sketchbook. And I actually use an adhesive, and then I covered it with just a thin layer of Mod Podge to help give it that cool, that smooth texture and that some shine to it from the sketchbook. Maybe one of these days I'll go through and, like I said, and do a tour of some of the sketches that I've done in my sketchbook. I hope you enjoyed this and you can see it step by step. There's the final piece, and that you will just hit like and subscribe and have a great day. Until next time.